You are listening to Fantha Tracks.
Because of the following special program, Wonder Woman and the Incredible Hulk will not be presented this evening.
It's time to get all your Star Wars news in a single file.
That doesn't sound too hard.
This is Making Tracks.
This is the way.
Here are your hosts, Mark Newbold and Mark Mulcaster.
I know these people. They are brutal. Does this look Jedi to you?
That's not how the Force works.
They'll never see it coming.
Count me in.
Misa back.
Hello and welcome to episode 245 of Making Tracks, brought to you by those fine folk over at fanthtracks.com. It is a brand new month and it's a brand new year, but it's two old farts in the hosting seat. It's me, Mark Mulcaster, and Mr. Mark Newbold joining me. As always, Mark Hayden, how was your Christmas?
Oh, wow. Christmas was lovely. It was very family focused and it went too fast and I ate too much. But yeah, no, it was really nice. I didn't get a massive amount of Star Warsy stuff, but I got lots of little Star Warsy bits that Ruth pulled together for me. So there was lots of little knick-knacky bits, which I really like. Yeah, it was very cool. How was yours?
Yeah, it was the Christmas of two halves in respects of I got quite a bit of James Bond stuff and quite a bit of Star Wars stuff. But
Nice.
nothing major on the Star Wars side because we'd just come back from Euro Disney. So
Yeah, Euro Disney.
it's never going to be called anything else but Euro
No.
Disney. So that was, I'd purchased quite a bit there. But I did get 4 calendars.
I only had 2.
There's a really nice one. It's right here, so I'll pick it up and show you. You might have it or you might have seen it. It's a perpetual calendar.
Oh, that's nice.
I mean, you won't be able to see it because of the reflection, but basically it's the Downs AT-AT on Hoth. But the reason why it's perpetual is basically you just change the date and the month.
I've got a Hallmark R2D2 one like that where you just change the little blocks on it.
Yeah, exactly. So I've been meaning to get that out and put it somewhere that I could at least change it at least once a week. Plus, the standard. Oh, nice. You got the...
That's the one. The little flip Revenge of the Sith one, yeah. This is great content for podcasts, isn't it?
It is. So you've got that and the everyday desk calendar and your standard 16-month calendar. Who actually uses the full 16 months? Normally, if you get a calendar, you're going to get one once a year.
Yeah.
It's probably going to be at Christmas. So you're going to chuck the old one out in January and then use a new one.
You know what Star Wars fans are like? Anything that's a variant, they jump on it. And I think they're thinking, 16 months? No, there's 12 months in a year. That's a variant. So I think that's the logic.
Do you know what? It's also being boring about it. It's probably something to do with like value for money. People think, I'm getting 4 extra months. When really, you're not. I think most calendars that you get, especially those kind of square flip ones, are kind of like 16 months these days.
But I know I could do with an extra 4 months in the year to get stuff done. I don't know about you.
Anyway, news. What's on the menu?
Let's kick off with the first news item. Interesting one as well. It came out via Collider. It was discussing the, as they call it, missing episode 7 Bespin scene. So when they made The Force Awakens, shot a recreation of the climactic battle between Luke and Darth Vader on Bespin from the end of The Empire Strikes Back. You and myself did Thank the Maker back in December, which was wonderful. We had a great time. Both did a couple of panels. Pablo Hidalgo did a couple of panels. And one of the panels I did was with Matt Sterling, the stunt performer on Force Awakens, one of many stunt performers. And he discussed this scene. And basically he said, we created the fight and it was never used, never, ever used. I put all this effort into it and it ends up on the cutting room floor and nobody ever kind of knows about it. Well, Collider kind of know about it because there was photographs that came out a few years ago of a chap very much looking like Luke, dressed up in that Empire Strikes Back clothing. But the scene was never put into the film. My question to you, one, fascinating thought that there was this amazing sequence that was filmed for The Force Awakens that we only briefly see. You see Rey in the corridor and that's about it, and hear some sound effects. But what do you make of this? Do you think there's the option a few years down the line when we're at Force Awakens 20th that somebody goes, do you know they did a scene that we never put in? Let's put in and make a special edition. Do you think there's ever the option to do something like that?
Do you know what? I kind of hope there is because, if it's not this scene, other scenes that they would have filmed and then obviously left on the cutting room floor for various reasons, for time and pasting and what have you. Deleted scenes, that's kind of what we need. This one would be interesting because you do wonder, obviously, how that whole flashback dreamscape thing was orchestrated was very avant-garde and everything had its way of blending into, one scene into another. So you wonder how much you would have seen. It was a rumor, wasn't it? It was one of those Mandela effect kind of things.
Yeah, very much.
Kind of knew about it. And it was meant to have happened, but then obviously we didn't. And all we saw was Daisy walking down that Bespin corridor. This stuff is prime for some kind of collector's box set or the extras section on Disney Plus.
Robert is somebody that we've not seen since, really. His name's not really been associated with Star Wars since. So it feels like it was its own thing. I mean, talking to Matt, he said that it was a sealed unit, nobody else on set, top secrecy.
Yeah.
Because recreating a scene from The Empire Strikes Back is such a big deal. I just wonder, you look at that scene and the shot that we had and the other stuff that we saw, the flashbacks, the within sequel trilogy flashbacks to Luke and moments like that, all work within the confines of that sequence. So I don't think in the end we lost a lot other than the fantastic curiosity of, wow, that would have been amazing to see how ILM at the time might have been able to transpose Hamill's face onto Robert Bolter's.
And I wonder actually maybe if it would have been that literal or if it would have been more, maybe it's focused more on Vader and, you've got, like Luke's closer, but like you've got his face away from the camera, so you don't necessarily see him. Again, that flashback changed and you wonder if maybe there was meant to be more of a story behind the finding of the lightsaber hilt.
You look at the story and you think that one of the key visuals of Force Awakens is Darth Vader's melted helmet. But also the film isn't just about Kylo kind of searching for that element of his grandfather's legacy, but also everybody else is searching for Luke Skywalker. So that Luke and Vader scene, apart from being like arguably the key moment in Star Wars so far, is also interesting in the realms of The Force Awakens because Vader's dead and gone, but there's a legacy to chase, and Luke disappeared, so there's a person to chase, and you see those two people. It could have been fascinating. Can you think of any other moments, though, in the original trilogy, specifically the original trilogy, that might have stood up to a recreation like this?
That is a good question, isn't it? The natural ones would be more probably around Luke, so maybe even the destruction of a Death Star, probably a little bit too similar, would be the Obi-Wan and Vader duel, maybe something to do with Luke and Leia, maybe some kind of like, that chat on Andor or something, or even that final duel.
Yeah.
So maybe you see the Empire Strikes Back confrontation where Vader's really dominant, and then you see the flip side where Luke's really dominant in Jedi. You
got that training sequence, of course, in Rise of Skywalker. So maybe they could, with the Yoda puppet there, and the ability, especially now, and this is Force Awakens era, so maybe the tech wasn't quite there then. They could have recreated moments of Luke and Yoda on Dagobah training and elements like that. I don't know. It's an interesting thought, though.
For me, I think it's because it's that whole flashback is initiated the moment that she kind of picks up that lightsaber.
Yeah.
So you do wonder if it was meant to be some kind of narrative device to kind of try and explain, and either it just didn't work, or maybe it was too long, or maybe they just changed the focus. It starts off really being about that Bespin thing, when it transitions through to like the Rey aspect of the story, of her being left on Jakku. And then that's kind of where we're starting to think, well, actually, hang on a sec, did Luke leave her there?
Do you think that's more of an editorial decision?
To be honest, I think it might be a narrative thing. Maybe they looked at it, and even when it was too long, or it was throwing too many different things into the mix and confusing it a little bit, where actually sometimes just having that notion of, actually, those who know that Rey is or Daisy is on Bespin, but for everybody else, it's just a transitional point for her to get to that next part.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll find out.
Hi, this is David W. Collins, voice actor for Star Wars and sound designer at Skywalker Sound. You are listening to Fantha Tracks.
One thing I will not misname is Indiana Jones's Boulder, because that decided to go walkabout this week at Disney World in Orlando during the Indiana Jones Epic Stunt Spectacular. The boulder that chases Indy at the very beginning of that particular event came off the rails, bounced towards the audience. One very quick and enterprising crew member leapt in front of it, to his own harm, because he got bounced on the floor and was helped off by fellow cast members. It looked like one of those balls that you would bounce around at a rock concert, but apparently the whole thing weighed about 440 pounds, so that would have done some serious damage. I've been to that stunt spectacular 2 or 3 times, and it looks like the safest thing in the world, because it is all there to show you the stunts that they do. So whilst Indy's obviously in clear and present danger all the way through the movies, when you watch the stunt spectacular, there's not supposed to be any danger at all. I'd love to know what caused that to come off the rails, because I've never heard of that happening before, and certainly with it bouncing towards the audience, that was quite a moment. But hats off to that crew member. What did you make of it when you saw the video? Or more to the point, what did you think when you heard that this had happened?
I was kind of slightly astounded, because you think something like that, which must get, well, how many performances are that? Like
Well,
a day? It must be like 5 or 6 at least.
Yeah, to memory, I think they do 5. Yeah, so there probably is the scope to do, more if they need to.
So, yeah, I mean, it's one of those odd things, isn't it? Because you kind of go, ugh. But, they do loads of tests and, everything, all those shows are so mechanical almost in its process and stuff.
Totally.
So, maybe it's a freak accident or maybe like a mechanical failure. I mean, could they even recreate that if they wanted to? But it's a bit meta as well.
It is a bit. I mean, because it's a stunt spectacular, they want to show you the danger in the stunts.
Yeah.
But of course, when they're doing a lot of real stunts, regular stunts, last article was just talking to Matt Sterling, who's a stunt guy. So he throws himself into things all the time, steps on landmines, as he said in our conversation. But that's all done, assessed, weighed up, and things go wrong. Things happen on set, people get hurt, but that's the nature of stunts and the nature of putting one foot in front of the other sometimes. 6 people die every year from T-Cozy-related injuries, believe it or not, which is the most baffling statistic I've ever heard. And so when you go to a stunt spectacular and you watch the guy doing the indie stuff, and then he'll stop it. Stop. The fake director comes out and says, well, this is what happens here and this is what happens there. But then for something actually to go wrong, I think the most impressive thing was the fact that the fella had the presence of mind. He knows that thing weighs a ton, but just to pop himself in the way and then the other guy comes along and stops it and rolls it away, it was really impressive.
It's crazy, isn't it? To be in that audience as well. If you hadn't seen it before, you'd be like, oh, wow, that's part of the show.
Totally. It's like Cantina 2 when Ash were playing and all these massive inflatable Death Stars came out and we're all like punching them like beach balls and stuff. You imagine that comes towards you, go, I'm going to give this a good thump, and then one shattered arm later.
Yeah, and you squashed your Mickey ears as well. Glad no one was hurt, other than maybe that crew member. And if they were hurt, then, whether there's blame, there's a claim.
Hi, this is Guy Henry, and you're listening to Fantha Tracks. Enjoy.
Last year at Surrey Star Wars Weekend, we had the great pleasure to interview a whole bunch of Star Wars guests. There was 35 folks there. We spoke to about 20 of them, and one of them was Erskin Semaj in Season 2 of Andor, Pierro Niel Mee.
Do you do many conventions?
I've done a few this year, since Andor came out. I did a couple in the States. I did one in South Dakota. This amazing convention called 503 Culture Con, which is all in aid of sort of children's cancer charity. Then I did Rebel Scum in Texas. Yeah, they're great. I had a really, really good time. And did one in Milton Keynes as well. Yeah. So I'm just sort of getting into it, but I'm loving it.
Globe spanning.
Yeah, I've been very lucky actually. Yeah, there've been sort of openings here and there that I've managed to sort of pop into, and it's been great to meet people like in the fan base and to be accepted. I had a whole thing where I got given like a Friend of the Rebellion sort of plaque and all that stuff, and as a Star Wars fan, it's been amazing.
So when you come into this world, you say you're a Star Wars fan anyway, so you're familiar with Star Wars and what that's about.
Yeah.
But when you come into this as an actor,
yeah,
and then there's all of this, a room full of people that people want to chat to you and want to get your autograph and stuff. Most roles that you go for, that's not part of the package, but Star Wars is.
Yeah, totally. It's a really lovely part of it that you get to because you can do like a bunch of stuff and you look different in the show and you won't get, you probably won't get recognised and you don't get a chance to talk about it. But I think something like this, that I was passionate about it going in and even more going out because of the nature of the job and the people involved, and everyone cared so much. So to be able to sort of sit down for a day and have like amazing people who love the world and love the show come up and say thank you and talk to you about it is it's a really lovely added bonus, because sometimes you can do these jobs and they just sort of disappear and they fall from your mind, but like this keeps it alive, and it was such an amazing thing to be a part of. So
when you came into the role then, did you know that this character had a pre-existing life?
No, I didn't actually. I got told after I got the part, and I think I had filmed some of it, so I went and then watched the Rebels episode, and it's a very different character.
It is.
And I wasn't about to go back and sort of change my character for it. But it was interesting seeing him in Rebels and getting a chance to dip into Rebels as well in general. I think was
cracking show.
Yeah.
It's interesting because Star Wars is so multimedia now that character could appear with you playing it, it could appear with another voice actor performing it.
Yeah.
It's all part of that character's life and history.
Yeah.
It must be nice as an actor as well to be, you're the most visible version of the character.
Yeah.
To be part of a sort of a bigger lineage must be really quite interesting. It's something that, again, you might not get in other roles.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it just goes for the world and itself being part of a bigger story and having an effect on these massive cultural moments, like, you know, the destruction of the Death Star, and having a hand in that retrospectively, or, you know, it's kind of an amazing, which I don't think you don't get with other jobs. So it's really cool.
He has such a fantastic mini arc within those episodes, because it goes from appearing almost like a betrayal, but not.
Yeah.
It feels very much like Lando in Empire to me.
Yeah.
Wonderful opportunity to have that heroic moment and turn it around and show that you were always on side.
Yeah, totally. And it never, like, I think Genevieve found that element of it really important, and the betrayal really important, because it was the last person she could trust, and I think a massive part of her character is the loneliness she feels throughout all of her work and all of her work for the rebellion, and her alienation. So I think that was the last straw, and I definitely appreciated that. But in my mind, it just felt so clear to him that the betrayal was totally necessary, and that was a hiccup, and that eventually would come good, and that eventually, you know, regardless of his relationship with her, that it was the important thing to do and the right thing to do, but that she would realise it eventually. Yeah. So I think it was just a necessary part of the plan, and, you know, within a day, it's resolved, and I like to think, you know, they are resolved. They are at the end. They sort of come back together, and I think they go on to have an even, you know, further relationship, professional and personal.
Absolutely. And is it a character that, if the opportunity arose, you'd like to revisit? Because
100%.
Being Star Wars, you could come back to that character 5 years, 10 years down the line.
Yeah.
I guess there's options.
Yeah, maybe in 4 years' time. Yeah, when I'm 70 years old, they do a sort of a post New Republic.
Yeah.
Sort of series where Erskin can sort of pop up. I was trying to think, because I was thinking of, he could be in Ahsoka, but he would then they would probably cast someone 30 years.
No,
30
it's not
years.
that far long.
Is it not? Is it 20 years? 20?
Where are we now? So you're a year before, so it's a 4, 7, 9. You're only about 12, 13 years.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
A bit of grey in the, you know.
Just grey. Yeah. Well, it's coming already. I'd love to do it again. Yeah. Maybe there'll be a spin-off.
Maybe there will.
An Erskin spin-off.
Yeah.
That's what everyone's asking for.
And so, like you say, as a fan coming into this, must have just been the joy of all joys. But as I said to Michael earlier, you know, you come into Star Wars and a lot of expectations. There's all spaceships and lightsabers and the Force and stuff. And you come into this deeply, intensely political story that's so layered. Maybe not what a lot of people coming into Star Wars would expect. That must have been fascinating as an actor.
I think it's easier coming into it in that respect, because Andor's quite singular as a Star Wars series. That it is, you know, it's not lightsabers and the Force. It is about people, and it's about a rebellion, and it's about something almost something bigger than Star Wars. You know, what it takes, the personal sacrifices. So in that respect, my first day on set was in the Senate pod, which is iconic. So first, you walk on and it's absolutely nuts, but very quickly you realise there's a job to do and there's a story to tell, and it's not necessarily to do with Star Wars or to do with your idea of Star Wars. It's to do with this very particular story. So I think that helps as someone who's a fan of Star Wars actually sort of boil it down into something slightly different and slightly more specific, which is this incredible story. Oh, thank you so much. It was a pleasure. Yeah, pleasure.
It's something we've been waiting for a long time. There's a Rey film coming with Daisy Ridley in it, but we don't know when it's coming. We don't know if it's written, and we don't know anything else about it other than it might be called New Jedi Order. And Daisy is clearly very excited, because if you go through the Fantha Tracks archive, you'll probably see 6 or 7 articles with quotes very similar to this latest quote from Parade magazine, where Daisy says it will arrive when it's ready and it will be worth the wait. That's all she says. She's still keen. She's still ready to talk about it. The brakes haven't been put on it completely yet. But And it really is a non-discussion point. But the discussion point is that Daisy's still talking about this film. It's now 2026, and we're no nearer than we were in 2023 when she stood on the stage at Celebration in front of all those amazing creatures from the sequel trilogy and said, there's a Rey film coming. We've talked about this loads of times on this show, Mark. Where are you with, I ask you this every time, but where are you with this whole thought process now? Because we've got Mando and Grogu only a few weeks up the road now in May. We've got Starfighter next year and the 50th. It's all kicking off. The original Star Wars gets re-released in February next year. Wow, we can now start saying next year. And so all these things are happening. Celebrations next year. All these things are happening. And we're no nearer to the Rey film, but Daisy's still out there giving it the good heave-ho. What do you make of that?
Bless her. That's the thing. If you were a films director or exec, you'd want some talent like Daisy who's just going to be behind the film regardless. I kind of feel like we're further away from this film getting released than we were at Celebration 2023 in some levels. It just feels a bit, With Mando and Grogu, that kind of maybe takes some of the heat off of it a little bit. And so does Starfighter. But then once Starfighter's out, or it's getting close, then I think people will really be seriously asking what is going on. I know what it's like. As a film production company, especially one that has shareholders and that invested, you probably don't want to be airing your dirty laundry. At the same time, they're not saying anything and almost putting Daisy out just to kind of go, oh yeah, everything's fine here. We're all fine here. How are you? Boring conversation and all that nonsense. It's a bit unfair on her, unless of course she's just doing it off her own back. But at the same time, you kind of wish that there would be something, some kind of, be it orchestrated leak to Hollywood Reporter or some kind of statement. But not only with this, but some of the other projects which seem to be still alive and kicking. Clearly, we haven't seen high nor hair of them. I'm even thinking about like the Lando film, TV show, whatever it is these days, musical. It just feels a bit weird to have the talent out there doing it and nobody from Lucasfilm saying anything.
I wonder now that we're into the 49th year, the big anniversary is next year. Clearly, Lucas is knee-deep in planning that and all the other stuff that goes around it, of which you'd imagine Celebration is going to be a keystone of that as well. I just wonder whether they're waiting not only for the first trailer for Starfighter to come out near the end of this year, you would imagine, starting getting teasers and stuff like that and more looks at what we could expect, and for people to get a flavour of that and an excitement for that, or whether they're waiting to see, as you just said, how Mando and Grogu does, even though they're completely unrelated. There's no correlation between Mando and Grogu and the Rey film, which is 30 years plus down the line. It just feels like they're testing the water for the interest of the fandom, but not just us, because we're going to go anyway, but everybody around it, the broader Star Wars audience, as we get towards that 50th anniversary.
Is there a D23 this year?
I think there wasn't one last year, so I'm assuming there will be this year.
Yeah, so that's a good shout. You wonder if that will be Starfighter and fairly heavily laden with some form of announcement. So it might just be that they're just keeping the powder dry. Maybe they're thinking, actually, we should learn our lesson, really learn our lesson from Celebration Europe 4 by not announcing a ton of stuff that really isn't anywhere close to being ready.
And also, with Starfighter being set in that era, or near that era, 5 years on from Rise of Skywalker, and I think the Rey film's another 10 years on from that, as they say. But I just wonder if there's any cameos or any guest appearances or anything familiar that turns up in Starfighter, because as Sean Levy has said, it's its own thing. It honours the history, it honours the legacy, it honours all the other bits that it would want to make a great original adventure. But it's still in that galaxy. If Poe Dameron, it's a film called Starfighter, if Poe Dameron flies in, no one's going to be surprised, are they?
Yeah, you could probably say there's definitely a ton of Marvel MCU films that work as standalone until post-credit scene and Nick Fury kind of comes out of like the shadows and connects it all together. You kind of go, well, that's all it needed. You think of the Acolyte, the Acolyte, it could have been placed anywhere in the timeline. Yeah. And then right at the very end, you get that one shot of Yoda and it's just like, it's kind of the same kind of thing, wasn't it? Oh my God. Need to watch season 2. But to answer your question, I'm really dubious. Obviously, if a film comes out, then fantastic. But, I'm not going to be going to the picket fences if it gets cancelled. Any film that is being bogged down, development issues and story issues, maybe then at that point you kind of go, it's a good idea, but is it a good idea?
If they're having to reach for it and really work,
having to stretch for it, then it's kind of like, is it the right thing to do, or is it something that there are parts that could be saved that could then be rolled into, I don't know, if need be, a Starfighter 2 or a another thing that could blend the Hunt for Ben Solo and the Rey film together, continue that Force dyad storyline.
That's an interesting thought, that reaching for it might mean it's not meant to be, but also you think of the situation they had on Rogue One when they had to rewrite so much of it, and the situation they had on Solo when they had to rewrite so much of it, or reshoot so much of it.
Yes.
And yet we would quite happily stand there and plant our flag on both of those films, which were difficult to make, but were both fantastic. So, yeah, we'll see. It's what it is, one of those we'll see. I'm just glad, as you say, I'm glad Daisy's still talking about it. She seems happy to. She's certainly busy. She seems to have films coming out all the time, so she's not short of opportunities to discuss this film.
For everything in one location, daily news, reviews, interviews, podcasts, video, and social media feeds, bookmark FanthaTracks.com for Star Wars news 24/7, 365.
2025 is in the books. Hasbro are moving on, looking forward to 26, 27 and 28. So there's plenty of stuff to come. And Steve Evans, Hasbro's senior design director for Star Wars and Marvel, put up what I would consider on his Instagram post a straw poll. There were 1,000 replies, so plenty of people came back to it. It was done by Steve, so I'm assuming, this is my assumption, that it was done off his own back to get a flavour of what the fans are thinking and wanting. He's asking for replies and thoughts on the Black Series, the Vintage Collection, and for the Retro Collection. Each expression was graded and they all got a B+ as it goes. So, the Black Series, which I always think is strange that they put the Black Series first. To me, it's always going to be vintage, but there you go, the Black Series. So basically it says, fans continue to strongly support the Black Series. They praise its premium feel. They want extra articulation, more accessories, and a clear value to remain a priority as the prices rise, which of course we all know prices are rising. The list here, I'll pick on the thing that people want to stop before anything else. Stop cutting articulation, stop overusing repaints instead of new releases, and locking important characters behind hard-to-get exclusives. That's something we've seen quite a bit lately, isn't it? You know, on the HasLabs, there's figures that end up in HasLabs that you have to get the HasLab to get the figures, and articulation's always been an issue. But repaints has been a massive issue. You do see a lot of things coming out and being re-released. First things first, Mark, what do you make to Steve even doing this as a thing on his Instagram page? I think he's quite brave, to be honest.
Mate, I was going to say, pretty brave. Got to be pretty confident and comfortable in your position in the company to be able to do something like that. But also, I wonder, like, how much of this was kind of sanctioned by Hasbro? I.e., if I do it on my Instagram, then it can maintain my unofficial moniker. But, like, you look at it, like, you know, the actual post he put out and, like, all the graphics and stuff, it's quite a swish little presentation. On one hand, you kind of go, get it, makes sense. And also, it starts to remove that whole anti-corporate sentiment if you're speaking directly to the guy in charge doing stuff. It's a really good idea. And to be fair, I mean, we both don't really collect Black Series. We're kind of vintage, or at least 3 3/4 inch. But the whole repacking and repaints is an issue, I think, across the board, isn't it? You kind of think, okay, well, on some levels, yeah, it makes sense if you've got like a squad of clones, you know, and they're all slightly painted differently. But that shouldn't be the be-all and end-all. You should be still doing all these characters. They shouldn't be there to prop up the line.
As you said, I think it's quite a smart thing to do. And knowing Steve, not mega well, but well enough, I do get the feeling that if this had come in and the scores would have been C-, he would have probably still posted it. Because as he says,
don't you?
Well, you do. You kind of put yourself on the line, but also I think he would embrace that as, well, we've just got to do better. So I very much appreciate the thought that he would do that. Another thing on the Black Series, people want Hasbro to start making value more obvious at higher prices by adding accessories, effects, and this is a key one, I think. More visually interesting characters like aliens and droids to tool up a figure is really expensive. It's crazy expensive. I spoke to Steve about this in Insider a few issues ago and went into the detail of that. Doesn't talk about cost, of course, but talks about the process and how involved it is, how many layers and levels and things that are happening all at the same time. So it's a massive undertaking. It's not as simple as some people might think, especially for a big sort of oil tanker of a company like Hasbro that has to deal with Disney and deal with Lucasfilm as well. People want them to maintain the face printing and the strong articulation. So it's a very positive outlook for the Black Series. B+ they give it. Vintage Collection. They want Hasbro to stop the long delays between announcements and releases, avoid leaning too heavily on the original trilogy, I thought was interesting, and simplify the exclusive strategies so collecting is clearer and fairer. Basically, I think some locations, some countries get exclusives that other countries don't.
Yes.
Or conventions, obviously, on the certain New York Comic Con and places like that get exclusives. It's difficult to get. And this is one I want to ask you a question about. Expand prequel era depth, including creatures and locations. Would you have appreciated that, having collected vintage yourself and enjoying the prequel trilogy and knowing there's so many characters in there that back in the day, during your Power of the Force era and through to your 30th anniversary and things like that, everything that moved had a figure, but not everything that moved in the prequel trilogy has had a figure, and certainly not the sequel trilogy.
Do you know, I think that's kind of part and parcel with the problem, isn't it? We've both spoken to Hasbro at MCM London about how they've kind of said, like, you kind of always need to have your Vaders and your Lukes and stuff like that. They need to be there because they are the core of that trilogy. The problem is then, if you say that and you apply that to the sequel trilogy and the prequel trilogy, you're just doing the same 9 or 12 figures over and over again. You need to have these interesting characters that we've never seen before. Like, you know, the prequels are so rich. You know, I just collected the episode 1 figures, or recollected, I should say, and I've just started doing Attack of the Clones. And actually, again, it's like you kind of misremember. You go, oh, yeah, there was tons. But actually, there wasn't loads, really. No, you know, like there wasn't like hundreds upon hundreds. It felt like that because you'd walk into a toy store and you just see like a wave of like all episode 1 figures. It was everywhere and all the vehicles and stuff. But you know, there wasn't like so many characters that you were really kind of going, oh my God, they've literally ticked every single box. There's plenty you could still do. I guess the problem is, it's that seesaw between, do you put investment into a lesser known character and know that maybe it may not sell as well, but it pleases the collectors? Or do you find ways to do that? Do you have to maybe put those into the waves or make those some of the collections and collector exclusive? Then like, it's a bit different. You go back to 2015 and you would have the SDCC convention exclusive, which was only available there. Now you tend to get a convention exclusive, which is the same one at MCM London or San Diego. So there's fewer exclusives, but I think the numbers have obviously increased. So the availability is maybe a little bit better. I could be wrong. You know, so it's not quite as bad as it once was personally to me. But yeah, some of this stuff needs to be a little bit more accessible. You know, I went into Smith's the other day. There isn't really any Star Wars in there at all. Nothing.
It is quite galling. I do wonder, though, and I think maybe this might be part of Steve's strategy for doing this, is that now Star Wars figures, Star Wars toys, Hasbro specifically, has kind of moved beyond being a toy on the shelf thing, like a WWE figure might be, like any other toy that's knocking around at the moment might be. Star Wars isn't that anymore. It is probably more tailored to people like us, and we're the target audience. And so at some point, you kind of think maybe Hasbro, instead of even putting those toys out to market, will just do it through Hasbro Pulse, because that's the marketplace for Star Wars toys now.
If they can get to a point where they produce on demand, that's what you need. You need them to be able to ad hoc produce on demand. Be it, they go, all right, so you want that Man-O-Man figure from Amanda and Grogu. We can only produce 10,000. Once they're sold, obviously, then we'll do another load. And it might be that you might have to wait 3 months or 6 months. But if you know it's going to come, you're fine. It's, you know, not knowing when we're going to come. Or, like I said, like these long delays between when they announce figures and when they actually do come. It is a difficult market these days.
Hey man, it's me, Kevin Smith, a Star Wars fan, Fantha Tracks fan.
Retro collection. So what fans have asked for in this straw poll, as I say, is to avoid modern articulation. So 5 POA, stick to that. Realistic sculpt detail, avoid repeating main characters at the expense of unmade ones. So they don't want to keep seeing characters coming out again on different cards. They want to see fresh new stuff. They want to go deeper into the OT locations, explore vintage style environments, and build waves around specific scenes or settings. That's interesting. In the vintage collection, we just had Return to Tatooine, and people now are saying that they'd like to see a similar mindset for the retro collection, which is quite exciting. Vintage style environments, talking play sets. There was plenty of play sets, especially for Empire, I would say, and for Jedi, locations like the Ewok Village. And also to continue, stay rooted in the classic Kenner look and feel, focus on the unmade and background original trilogy characters, and a clear separation from modern lines. So it's very much retro collection is its own thing. I like it when they do a retro style version of, let's say, characters from Mando or Ahsoka or anything. I kind of dig that. But I also get that if I had a choice between that and those figures coming out in Vintage and Black Series, and then in the retro collection to have figures that I never got back in the day from the OT in that original style.
It's funny, I was talking to a friend of mine. He stopped collecting retro. To him, the primary reason for retro was to basically allow collectors who haven't had the chance to pick up original vintage carded figures at a sensible price to kind of own something nostalgic, which I get. So he's like, the moment they started doing Ahsoka and Acolyte, he was like, nah. But if you were to go back and go, right, we're going to do 12 unreleased Cantina figures.
Yes.
In a retro style. Yeah, fine. Do like Figure and Dan. Do the full freaking modal nodes. But do Muffet and Cabe and everybody else and Boshek and people like that. Do a retro version. I wonder what the market feels. Do they want their retro playsets to be retro style, which is basically a lump of plastic and a bit of cardboard? Or do they want something a little bit more like the Cantina they got from HasLab?
There's options. I mean, lots of fans I know have wanted and asked about mini rigs. That's certainly something that Hasbro could pick up and do new mini rigs and bring back some vintage mini rigs in the retro collection packaging. Also, if they did a Falcon, who'd be surprised? I think nobody would be surprised. So they've got options. They've definitely got options if they want to do other stuff.
Okay, so that wraps us up. First episode of 2026, and we've done a lot of wrapping up and unwrapping and everything else over the last couple of weeks of presents, not ourselves. Let's be fair, let's keep that clean.
Oh, I don't know, it's freezing here. I feel like wrapping up.
To be fair, I mean, you might even be able to hear my little heater going off in my little cold collection room, and I've got a blanket on because it's pretty
bless.
cold. Yes, so that wraps us up for today. No listeners' question. However, that doesn't stop people from sending them in, and I know we had a monster load in just before Christmas, which we rattled through in that double episode, which was fun. So let's get more questions in. To do that, Mr. Newbold can let you know how he can get in touch.
Yes, I can. And here's how you can do it.
Email radio@fanthatracks.com. Head to links.fanthatracks.com for links to our social media feeds, Fantha Tracks TV and Fantha Tracks Radio. Thanks to James Semple for the Fantha Tracks intro, Blues Harvest for our Making Tracks opening music, and Mark Daniel and Vanessa Marshall for our voiceovers. New episodes drop Tuesdays and Fridays at 7 o'clock UK time. Our weekly news show, Good Morning Tatooine, goes live Sundays at 9 o'clock UK time on Facebook and YouTube. And remember, Fantha Tracks is absolutely free, so it costs nothing to stay updated on all the latest Star Wars news.
And that's me done for this episode, Mark.
Nice one, matey. Look after yourself. And to everybody else, you stay safe. Take care, wrap up warm, support your local independent toy stores, and may the Force be with you.
Coming up next on Fantha Tracks Radio, it's the Fantha from Down Under.